Welcome to Healthy Point of View Podcast, where we explore the latest trends and topics in health and wellness. Whether you're looking for tips on nutrition, fitness, mental health, or anything in between, we've got you covered. Join us as we chat with experts, share stories, and learn how to live a healthier and happier life.
Welcome to a Healthy Point of View Podcast, and today we have Joe LeHotay. He is with Pulse. And we're going to be talking today about grounding. We're going to start off talking about grounding and talk about benefits of pulse electromagnetic therapy, how it can be tenfold of what grounding truly is. Joe, welcome to a Healthy Point of View Podcast.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for having me here. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into this field of health and wellness. You know, I see you at all the trade shows, right? We always run into each other there. And it's always great because every time we go somewhere, we're like traveling all the way to Vegas, traveling to Austin. And I'm like, well, I know he's got all the technology over here. Time to go ahead and
Let's go.
You know? So how did you get into this whole field of pulse electromagnetic field therapy?
Yeah, it was interesting, sort of by accident, but divine intervention at the same time, I like to think. I've been in business in sales basically for 25 years. And most of it in the healthcare IT space. So it's more of on the regular medical Western side of things, selling software solutions and all kinds of automation to hospitals, large physician practices, insurance companies around electronic medical record, population health management, and even health information exchange, getting regions and geographical regions and cities to all speak with each other around certain medical data.
Wow.
I did that for about 20 years, basically. And all the companies that I had ever worked for, it was only 4 different companies, but they were all acquired. And I never got an exit payout. So I had to keep getting up every day and going to work. And on the last one, when the company was about to be sold, CEO came to us and said, all you salespeople are going to be on the street, basically, because the company that's buying us only wants our technology. So we all started talking to recruiters and looking for opportunities. And a buddy of mine called me who I had known years and years ago, maybe 20 years ago. And he asked me if I'd ever heard of PEMF. And I had. So I said, yeah, I've heard of it. You know, I don't know too much about it, but I've tried it before. And he said, no. There's a company in Atlanta who is doing PEMF. I went down and met with them. I tried the technology. I brought my sister-in-law, who's a very cynical ER physician, with me. She hates everything. And basically, she loved it. And I loved it, and it made my shoulder feel great for the first time in 20 years from college football. And so he says, I signed up as a rep with them. And he told me about the company and everything. And he says, do you want to look at it? And I said, yeah, it sounds kind of interesting. You know, tell me how it goes in a couple of weeks. You know, give me a call back and let me know how you're doing. You know, I had other things going on. I had to finish up and stuff like that. Well, he called me like 2 days later. And he said, Joe, they're the rep for this company, Pulse, PEMF, in Chicago, where I lived at the time, just moved and had to leave the company. And so, do you want to talk to these guys? And I said, yeah, I'll talk to them. And yeah, that was 7 years ago. And this is definitely the funnest thing I've ever done.
That's
just
awesome.
I love what we do.
That's awesome. And, you know, one of the things is you being an experienced sales rep, right? There's no better way to sell than actually believing in the product and the service of what you're actually selling, right? Because then it comes off very genuine based off of what you believe in. So, by the way, I'm from the Midwest too, from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So,
yeah, cool.
I don't miss it this time of the year, by the way. So, you got into the business. You started seeing a lot of benefits from it. What made you go into the functional medicine side? Were you doing that before with whatever you were repping?
No, absolutely not. We were all on straight, allopathic medicine, hospitals and health systems, no alternative, no holistic, nothing like that. However, our family was all of those things. So that was the dichotomy. And that's what really, when I saw PEMF, I had a chance and an opportunity to basically have my business around all the things that I already believed in as a family.
Yeah.
And so, it was always a little weird, being in the medical world. And it was, when you're selling, there's always, if you're selling something legitimate, which, all of that, of course, there's always a value proposition to it. And explaining to a chief financial officer from a health system that my software was going to save them $15 million this quarter, that's impressive. And that's a good conversation. But when my eyes were opened was when I started doing this, and I have people get off the technology after only a few minutes or a half an hour or whatever, first time, and they basically say some version of, oh, wait a second.
Wow, my pain is gone. I'm feeling a lot better.
This was hurting me until I came in here today, and now I can do it great.
Yeah.
So that really gets me up in the morning.
It's rewarding, right?
More than the $15 million ROI.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, with Liquivida, we brought the technology in recently, not too long ago, and we're seeing and hearing those testimonials as well. So I can only imagine the amount of testimonials that you have in the stories, and I can't wait to get deeper into that. So let's talk about grounding. Let's tell the listeners that are listening to the podcast here what grounding is and how this is similar to grounding, but at a greater level, and how it works and how it can be localized, and the different things that we treat with it. Let's get into those details.
Yeah, it's interesting. Grounding is well known by a lot of people. Some people call it earthing. And it's basically the concept where you're touching your body to the ground, to the earth, to the grass or dirt, not sidewalk or driveway or parking lot, but on the ground or the beach.
Like get into the soil, go to the
best.
Sand, in the beach.
Yeah,
right.
The beach is the best. Take your shoes off, take your socks off, lay down, as little clothes as possible on the beach.
How long are you supposed to do that for to get the right benefits?
I mean, I think just having a morning walk on the beach for a little while, 10, 15, 20 minutes, if you can, while the sun's shining on you and you're listening to the water and you're breathing the salt air, which is also beneficial, and your feet are touching the ground, you're now benefiting from everything that the earth provides, from light to air to ground. And the grounding, since you asked about it specifically, the way I believe it to work is you're getting a couple of things. You're releasing, you're grounding your body to the earth, which means the same as it means for an electrical circuit. So every electrical circuit in the room has that little hole in the bottom. There's two prongs and then the grounding plug. And those run through the house to a central place, into the ground, deep, into a metal rod that's shoved way deep in the ground, right? And so that's how we ground our electrical circuits, by basically connecting them to the underground.
Right.
So we're doing the same thing to our bodies. When we do that, we ground ourselves and basically get electrons into our body and release the unneeded components.
And that's because the earth has its own magnetic frequencies, right?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You are actually touching the frequency, the resonant frequency of the earth. And so you're getting benefit from that. And so that's why when people go to the beach or they go outside for a while and they get sunlight, they talk about recharging their batteries. It's sort of a subconscious, thing that people just, they say that because they've heard that forever, but really that's what they're doing.
Yeah, like when you started saying, well, go outside, get that initial sunlight, I started feeling relaxed just thinking about it. I mean, truthfully, because honestly, you hear about the red light therapy, a lot of these biohacking modalities that are out there, and you could actually do it naturally, right? You get that first sunlight in the morning, you're going to get a lot of that infrared, right? You're going to get some of that blue light as well, too, which helps stimulate the mitochondria. So this all goes into play. But in today's world where, you go to downtown Fort Lauderdale, everyone lives in a high rise. When's the last time anyone was able to get proper grounding? Take off your shoes and go walk in the dirt, right?
It's a great point. In today's society, if we were talking about 100 years ago, and you can get great benefits just by being outside, the sun, the air, the ground, growing your own food, making sure, the water was a lot purer back then, right? And so roll forward 100 years, now our situation is, like you mentioned, lifestyle, first of all, where you're living in a place where it's not that convenient to take advantage of these natural, phenomenon, natural occurrences, but also what's been done to some of the food and the water and even the air. So
We have tons of toxins,
Yeah.
right? We have certain foods that are causing severe inflammation. And one of the things when we met, one of the things you were telling me is like, this helps with decreasing inflammation, right? This helps detoxify the body. So let's get into a little bit more of the science behind, now that we know that what grounding is, right? And a lot of people, especially a lot of health enthusiasts, are actively grounding on a daily basis, how they can actually get this tenfold at a different level, right? Where there's going to be much more benefits from it. So let's talk about the actual benefits of the pulse electromagnetic field therapy.
Sure. Yeah. And so if you want to think of it as 10x grounding or 100x grounding, that's great. That's a real easy way to think about it. But basically what PEMF does, pulsed electromagnetic fields, is it applies the pulse magnetic field to the body, either systemically. If you lie on a full body bed or sit in a chair, it gets most of your body, or focally, if you have something that's of issue specifically where you want to apply this energy.
Right.
And it basically pours bulk energy into the body to stimulate and exercise depleted and low energy cells. Because anytime there's pathology, injury, surgery, stress, fatigue, things in the body that we would want to resolve, so to speak, cells can be clumpy and clumped together and kind of locking in toxins and metabolic waste that wants to get out, should get out, but can't.
Right.
And also the good healing components of oxygen and hydration and nutrients, some of the things that Liquivida is experts in, can't get in efficiently to these
Right.
depleted low energy cells. And so when we exercise those cells, think of them opening up and being better at uptaking the good nutrition
Right.
and components and expelling the waste and toxins that
Wow.
the body doesn't
Wow.
need. So now, once you're sort of cleaning house like that, like almost like a well-oiled machine where it's in good with the good, out with the not unneeded, now you're able to heal, the body's able to heal much more efficiently
Naturally.
than it could before. And all the PEMF is doing is applying the energy into that environment to help the body do what it's designed to do already.
Let me get that straight. So when you do the PEMF, you're basically opening up the cells, allowing more oxygen and more nutrients into the cells, right? So, like for example, Liquivida, we do the IV vitamin drips, and you were at the IV Biz Bash, which I think this was the first year you were at the IV Biz Bash.
Yep.
Right. So, would it be safe to say that doing the IV drips as you do the PEMF, you're going to get more absorption of those nutrients?
Yes, that would be safe to say.
Wow.
And so we've seen IVs run faster. We're on the leading edge of this. And, PEMF has been around 100 years, used on people and animals. And so it's not new.
Right.
IV nutrition's been around a heck
Many
of a
years.
long time
Yeah.
as well. But the two together haven't really been used for all that many, years.
I think they complement each
We're
other.
on the leading edge, but it's
Right.
a very intuitive, obvious, complementary, meeting of approaches and therapies. And so we're seeing quicker run times, and we're seeing, in the case of something like NAD+, let's say, that usually produces some type of unpleasant feeling
Right.
with the patient. And so you need to run those drips slower so that the patient can tolerate it a little bit easier. We see those drips running much faster. So I
Okay.
have several reports of people pulsing
That's interesting.
either during an NAD drip or just as a matter of course, they're a Pulse regular user of Pulse.
Right.
And so it's in their environment. They have that energized environment running their NAD pluses in an hour or less.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes.
Wow. That is much faster. That's interesting. So with the PEMF, when someone goes through that procedure, the service, and I know you have different devices, right? You have the bed that you lay down. We have the chairs at Liquivida.
Mm-hmm.
What are people expected to feel throughout the process?
Yeah.
Because I know my first time, first you kind of go, it's like, what's going to happen? This chair is like electrified, right? It's plugged into the wall. Am I going to feel something? And then, as they start turning it up, you're like, okay. And then you start, you got any kind of issues, you kind of start feeling it there. So I want you to kind of go into those details of what most people are expected to experience.
Yeah, it's a great question. And, it's really the number one reason why when you see us at a trade show, we've driven numerous vans with that equipment to that trade show, because to get people on it is the easiest way to explain it.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Sitting and chatting with somebody just with words, I'll do my best. It feels like a magnetic massage. So people expect that when they sit on the chair or lie on the bed, there's something moving inside that chair, when really there's not. It's just emitting the magnetic field, and it's your body that responds to that movement with some either subtle contractions or
Right.
aggressive contractions, depending on how intense you dial it up. But really, it's really in the experience. And that's another thing about this high impact or high impulse PEMF, which is the pulse variety of PEMF. Because that's another topic. There's many varieties of PEMF on the market that are nothing like the pulse, technology.
Explain the difference between both.
Well, there's a very broad spectrum. So there are PMF devices on the market, and they're all good. So I'm not saying they're not, but there's a broad spectrum of the way they feel and
Right.
the way they work. On one end of the spectrum, you have devices that either are trying to emulate grounding, like we
Okay.
talked about earlier, so you're not feeling much there, or they're trying to dial in a specific frequency, which is good for that area of the body. So, let's say a specific frequency helps the liver. They're going to dial in that frequency, apply it to the liver area, and the liver will, quote unquote, resonate with that frequency.
Interesting.
Okay.
And what about pulse? What kind
Yeah.
of frequencies behind pulse?
So on the other side of the PMF spectrum, and the other side of then the resonant frequency devices that I just described are technologies like Pulse, where we call those impulse PEMF. So those are literally hitting the cell with a pulsed magnetic field, penetrating the cell. It can be regulated from very gentle, very kind of feathery, to we're going to knock you out of the chair.
Which I have
people
felt
like
that one. Yeah. I do. I actually, like, when I get there,
Right.
first I start it and then start, putting it up little by little,
Right.
and then make sure I could tolerate it.
Yeah.
And then I put that thing up, man, because I know it's doing something.
Yeah. And so think of that, instead of trying to dial in that frequency, like we said, for the liver, what we're doing with Pulse is we're hitting every cell with the same impulse at the same time. And every cell or every area of the body, every organ, every tissue type, all these things have different frequencies that they resonate with. They all resonate at their own frequency. So think of throwing 10 different size stones into the same pond at the same time. All of those ripples are going to be different sizes.
Right.
So that's sort of the flavor of the impulse PEMF that Pulse provides.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about, like, athletes. Recently, we've had different athletes that, they get their injuries from, playing hockey or, playing football, whatever it is. How can this help with injuries? Because one of the things that I've noticed in going to the trade shows and also here in Liquivida, you have the pads to hit localized areas.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about that, about people with injuries and how this helps them.
Yeah, it's great for anything from if you're well, if you're unwell, if you're a high performer, if you're injured. Really, as I think we said before, I'm not sure if we covered it, but what Pulse is doing is it's providing energy to the body so that we can do our own healing in a better way. We don't always have enough energy in our cell at the foundational cellular level to really heal the body as quickly or as thoroughly as we might expect.
Right.
And that has to do with lifestyle. It has to do with our environment. It has to do with our habits. It has to do with whether we get enough rest. It has to do with a lot of different things.
Right.
But sort of plugging yourself in and charging yourself up gives your body that better chance of resolving things in a more thorough and sometimes a lot more quickly manner. And that could be anything from something that's uncomfortable, like an injury, that could be something that's, you've been dealing with for a number of years, without getting into too many medical conditions, because the one thing Pulse is not, is it's not a medical device.
Right.
It's a wellness device. And so, although we've heard story after story after story, some of the regulations are a little bit tight on, the specifics that I can start to discuss.
And that's a lot of the stuff we do in the alternative medicine world, right?
Sure.
But I get what you're saying, but at the end of the day, people are benefiting from this. But I do want the listeners to understand that this is not something where you have to be sick or have a problem to do. This is something that's more proactive as a preventative approach to make sure you're optimizing your body to perform at its optimal levels, right? At its peak levels. And I'll tell you, so one of the things, I have a good friend of mine. She's a personal trainer, and she has been dealing with endometriosis. And she came in and tried the Pulse, and she had an unbelievable initial experience where, with the endometriosis, everything just like, especially in the pelvic floor area, she explains that everything's like tight, because she's got the pain and everything else. And throughout that procedure, throughout the process of doing the Pulse, she just felt a huge relief, a relief that she didn't feel for several months. And it didn't fix her issue, but it definitely allowed her to manage those symptoms she was having until she was able to go get the surgery. Yep. So, I actually, after that, what I ended up doing, I said, something just happened here. So, I go to Google like everybody else, and I just start researching endometriosis, PEMF. Tons of studies came out.
There you go.
Very positive studies. And that's why I noticed this is, all right, we got something good here. Something that's going to help a lot of people with different issues that they have, and then, helping the people prevent getting that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you start talking about not just using it when you're sick or when you have an injury, it can be a great aspirin. I have something I'm dealing with now. Let's throw some energy at it and let's see if we can do something to move it along, But it's a really awesome vitamin. So if you just think of both of those concepts,
right,
long term, building resiliency, like you said, in the body, shoring up resources from an energy standpoint in the body is always a really good idea. And so, yeah, I talk about that all the time, that vitamin versus aspirin thing. Use it as an aspirin. It's great. But remember, it's an awesome vitamin.
Right.
Keep using it. Be consistent with it. You're not going to take a bottle of vitamins and then never take another one as long as you live, So be consistent about it. I usually say if someone's trying to resolve a specific thing that they're dealing with, try Pulse 3 or 4 times a week for 3 or 4 weeks. It's easy to, remember. It's a good rule of thumb. It's 15 to 20 sessions, could be 30 minutes, could be 60 minutes, depending on what you're setting up in your stores for memberships and packages and things like that. And the sweet spot's probably about 30 to 60 minutes, but 45 minutes right in the middle of that is a great sweet spot for setting sessions. And then once you go through the 3 or 4 for 3 or 4, let's just call it, now you're looking at going down to maybe twice a week or once a week, but try to be consistent with it for as much of the rest of your life as you can. We refer to PulsePEMF as cellular exercise. So if you think of it,
that's awesome,
like you think of physical exercise, that's how often you want to be doing it. That's how long each time you want to be doing it. And that's how much of the rest of your life you want to be doing it.
So, Joe, let me ask you, have you seen like an uptick of people actually having these devices in their homes?
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
I have probably a third of my clients are personal. That may have ticked up a little bit in the last couple of months.
I'm seeing that with the infrared saunas, the cold plunge.
Yeah.
And it's like, I got clients that you go to their homes, right? That they'll live in a 2-story house. And I tell them all the time, it's like, I'm going to put a Liquivida sign in front of your
Especially
house. So
this
you
area
have
here.
everything in there,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So people are putting all this stuff in their homes because they know what the benefits are. So if you have to do it that frequently, might as well just have it there.
Yeah, there always comes a point where you're tired of going to an office or to a
Right.
store or to a doctor's office or whatever and paying for that, especially if you have children or a larger family, if you have pets, because this is used on horses and pets as well.
Oh, horses and pets also.
Yeah. Pulse has
Wow.
an entirely other animal division where we have a whole other team of reps.
Wow.
With doing the horse pulsing and
You know what? I
dogs
saw
and
that
cats
on
and
mine. I
everything.
saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually searching for the Instagram page and that popped up first.
It's very, but when you mention biohacks and setting up your own studios and home and things like that, just kind of jogged my train of thought here is that we like to think of Pulse as the foundational biohack, really,
Right.
because when you think about it, giving the body energy and helping the uptake and elimination of toxins and the uptake of good components into the body is really what every biohack is trying to do. Everybody's trying to, every approach, therapy, technology, biohack is either trying to get something into the cell or remove something out of the cell.
Right.
And so if we go through and open the cells for better receptivity and better elimination, better detox, either prior or, like I said before, as a matter of course, a steady diet of the PEMF, we really add value, we think, to any other biohack you're doing. So if you're trying to get the most out of your biohack dollars, if that's a thing, which it's becoming more and more, I would always consider adding PEMF, to that mix as that foundation. So you'll see, better.
And this just works very well in conjunction with a lot of these other services and products. And if you're already doing, let's say, IV nutrition as a patient, and you know that you're going to be able to get the benefit even at a greater level, why not?
Why
right?
not?
You might as
You're
well.
sitting there anyway.
Yeah. Joe, I want you, I know with the years of you selling this, right, you've come across some really great success stories. I want the listeners to hear one of the most, the greatest success story that you've heard throughout your years of doing this. Share it with us.
Well, I will share. Wow. I know I have one that I want to share. This is insane. It doesn't have to do with pain or illness, but it's super interesting. I have tons of those too. There's a woman who used to work for Pulse, and she worked for the company before I got there. I've been there 7 years. She was there before I got there. And when we met, she was about 46 years old. And here's how it went. The owner of the company came to her one day, and the story is that she and her husband had been married for 22 years and never had children. And he came to her one day and he said, "Wendy, you've been working with me a long time. Why don't you take a machine home with you? And I don't have you on a health plan per se, so that's going to be my health plan to you. And you and your husband, use the Pulse at home and enjoy it." And she took the machine home, and 6 months later, she got pregnant when she was 48 years old.
So I got to ask, was it the bed pulse? Or was it?
That I don't know.
I'm trying to think, like, what
That I don't know. But that's probably the craziest story.
That's awesome.
That I've ever heard from Pulse. And you can really run the list of, if somebody just wants to fill in the blank with whatever they might be dealing with, there's a really good chance that Pulse will be able to help that in some way.
That's
and
awesome.
Sometimes the results are absolutely phenomenal.
So let's touch up on that. Are there any contraindications for utilizing the Pulse?
Yes, thank you. So pregnant women shouldn't get on Pulse. So before you get pregnant is fine.
Okay.
Anyone with an implanted medical device like a pacemaker or some of the other devices that are electronic and running inside the body. Metal implants are all fine. So we have our hip replacements and our knee replacements. Those are all fine, screws and pins and all of that. Not a problem at all. And people who have gone through an organ transplant shouldn't go on because PEMF may boost the immune system and
Okay.
potentially cause a
Oh, wow.
rejection issues.
Interesting. That's good to know. That's really
Yeah,
good to know.
and also if someone's had surgery, we usually suggest that they wait about a week and a half to 2 weeks, just until the surgery site is knitting together and healing up, and their doctors cleared them for exercise.
Is
And
there
then they're
any
good to
age
go.
restriction for the pulse?
Not really. No.
Children, they can use
Even
it?
with infants, usually we see moms or dads holding an infant in the chair or on the bed.
Oh, wow.
I have some
Okay,
pictures from
awesome.
a recent trade show where a little baby was lying on the dad's chest and the mom was on the other bed across the way. So it was kind of a family pulse. But kids, yeah, once you're 3-4 years old, you can jump in, and you're good to go. And all ages, even the elderly, as long as there's no running electronics inside.
Cool. So one of the things that was a little bit hard to get used to getting on the pulse is that as busy as I am, I'm always on my phone. So I was told initially, nope, can't have your phone. Take off your wearables of your Apple Watch, and I took off my Oura Ring also because I just didn't know what I was going to do with that. But why is that so?
Yeah, it's just that the strong magnetic field may interfere with the delicate electronics in your phone or your iPad or your Oura Ring. I haven't really come into any crazy stories of anything being destroyed or anything like that. But, we always use as a precaution about a couple feet away from the device. So it's okay if you have it on this table or on that table while you're doing it. And the other benefit there is if somebody's coming into a Liquivida and they want to relax and they want to get their IV, it's probably a good idea to just check out for 30 minutes and, do your best job of getting that rest that you're coming in and you're paying for. Checking out is not a bad idea, once in a while.
That's true,
That goes a
yeah.
long way
You
for
can
your
kinda-
mental health and your
Little
physical
meditation
health.
wouldn't hurt while you go through it, right?
Sure
Kind of
thing.
relax that brain from going. So if we were to leave off with the top 5 benefits that the pulse will give someone's body, what are they? Top 5
Yeah,
benefits.
I would just say more energy. And when you think of more energy, don't necessarily jump to, I'm going to be jittery, because that in itself is a whole conversation around the misconception of what people
That's
think
chemically
energy comes
induced
from.
energy. Right.
Right.
You don't want that.
Right. And so natural energy is used by the body both to perform, so you might feel ready to go, or to rest, so you might feel like you should have a nap. So when we see people get off pulse, it's one of those two.
Right.
The best one is when it's a combination of those two.
Oh, wow.
Completely relaxed readiness. And I made up a word, I think. It's called being competitive. You're calm, but you're ready to go.
I like
what
that.
can
You might have to trademark
what
that.
can I
That's
go
good.
at next? So that's the
Competitive.
biggest thing is more energy. You might feel more relaxed. You might feel mood benefits from it. Just general long-term wellness from it. You might get some really cool relief from something that you're dealing with, even in a short session. When we do shows, like where we meet all the time, we're usually only doing 8 or 10-minute demos, and people get off the
People feel
table
good.
all the
Right.
time, and they say, dude, when can I come back again? This is awesome. This feels great. I came in with blank, and now I feel like awesome, from it. And they come and see me again the next day and then the next day too, because the effects are cumulative too, just like before, just like physical exercise. It's best to go to the gym 3 times a week than once a week for 3 weeks, right?
Right.
Same with pulse. It's best to do it 3 times in 1 week if you're looking to resolve that thing, like you were saying, what we were saying before. The benefits pile up. Could be something mood related, mental related. So we pulse the head a lot. So you're talking about everything from energy to relaxation to faster and better recovery from sports to faster and better recovery from workouts like DOMS, like the muscle soreness that everybody experiences after a hard workout. So faster relief from that, getting back into the gym faster. Things like jet lag. So for people, I always say the more successful you get as a person in business or in sports or whatever it might be, the more subject you are to jet lag. That usually comes along with it.
Right.
And so if you can find a way to modulate yourself after a long flight, because then you have a quick meeting you have to get to or perform in a game the next morning or something like that. You want something that's going to modulate you but energize you at the same time. And there's very few modalities that can do both of those things at the same time. And that's one of the really kind of off-grid secrets about something like Pulse.
I love that. I love that. And you're getting all those benefits through proper detoxification, decreasing inflammation, getting those nutrients into the cells, right? Seeing some of that regenerative medicine happen throughout that process. So this is future thinking.
And that's a great point right there that you just made, because you said you're getting all of those things like the better oxygen flow, the better circulation and things like that. The Pulse isn't doing any of those things. The body is doing all of those things.
Right.
The body is only meant to heal and adapt. That's the only two things the body does.
As long as you give it the right things it needs,
we just need to support it sometimes with some supplemental energy to get that done. And so once that's in place from Pulse or from some of the other biohacks that you're involved with or IV therapy, then the body can take care of itself in a much better way.
Awesome. Awesome. Joe, tell everybody something that no one really knows about you.
Oh my goodness. Well, thanks to Instagram, I think a lot of people know this about me, and I think a lot of people know most everything about me at this point. Let's see. I know. I don't think I've ever posted on this. I collected baseball cards for about 25 years.
Really?
Yeah.
You still have them?
I still have most of them.
I have a bunch from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I got a Roberto Clemente.
Oh, boy. Yeah,
Sammy
that was
Sosa
such a
rookie.
sad day.
Yeah.
Back in 72, I think it was. New Year's Day when
I
he
have
was
a
in his
bunch.
plane
I have a bunch
crash.
of rookie cards. Ken Griffey rookie. I don't even know what the value of any of them are, but
Oh, good.
yeah,
Let's get together.
yeah,
Maybe
we should.
I can buy some off you if you don't know.
I'm
the
like
value.
I'm like a coin collector too since I was young.
Yeah,
So I got a bunch
very
of like old school coins. I got a $1 coin that's like pretty big. You know, it's not the small little silver dollars and stuff. So that's pretty cool, man. Not too many people still do the whole baseball card, basketball card thing.
Yeah, that's just I'm inches away from getting back into it, but I'm kind of trying to control myself.
So, Joe, if people want to find you or learn more about the Pulse, how can they find you?
Yeah, easiest way is Instagram. So at LeHotay Joe. I also
spell that for them.
Yeah, it's at LEHOTAY Joe JOE. On Instagram, I post on PEMF all the time. Easy ways to think about it and conceptualize on it, because it is a pretty kind of a new topic for most people. Also on YouTube, I have a podcast of my own. It's called Resilient Business with Joe LeHotay. You can look me up there. Or you can email me at jlehotay@pulsepemf.com. And be happy to sit and chat with anyone who's looking at this for their clinic, for their IV lounge, for any type of wellness business, or any personal, biohacker that just wants to invest in their wellness.
Absolutely. And listen, we have a lot of our physicians, our mid-level practitioners that buy our Liquivida products that listen to this podcast. This is a great addition to add to your practice for those patients doing the IVs, or even if they're not doing the IVs. So definitely reach out to Joe. Joe, it was a pleasure of having you here on a Healthy Point of View podcast. Let's see more success, and it's happening.
Thank you, Sam. It was my pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you for watching a Healthy Point of View podcast. This is Sam Tejada, your host. Make sure you subscribe, follow us, click, do all the good stuff, leave comments. We'll see you next time.